Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Hawaii, the state of clean energy. I'm your host, Mitch Ewan. Our underwriter is the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, and that's a program of the Hawaii Natural Energy Institute. I'm very pleased to welcome our guest today, Matthew Geyer. He's a founder, one of the founders of Hawaii Environmental Change Agents, and we're going to be talking story today about Hawaii Environmental Change Agents and the current legislation that they are following and have an interest in. Matthew, welcome back to the show. You were back here originally in November, and a lot has changed since then. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mitch. Real honored to be here.
Yeah, so let's learn a little bit more about Hawaii Environmental Change Agents. What is it? And when did you say why, and when did you set it up?
Yeah, so it started Hawaii Environmental Change Agents a couple years ago, and it's an independent grassroots organization. We're all volunteers. Anyone can join and make a difference. We're focused on environmental, climate change, resilience, and adaptation, and at the same time, trying to focus our efforts on state legislation and making sure we get effective bills passed through our state legislature.
So we have a few slides here that we'd like to show while we're going through this. So let's flip up the slide number 2 and talk a little bit more about your goals.
Right. So we are, again, we're addressing climate change. We're protecting, we're restoring our environment. And when we're talking about adaptation, we're making sure that especially low-income families, low-income places are especially vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. So that's what we're talking about when we're looking at resilience, adaptation. We're looking at the impacts on the indigenous communities, low-lying Pacific Islands, making sure they're taken care of. So equity is really important when you're looking at these environmental issues.
So how many people are in your organization? What's your kind of membership?
Right. So we have 10 task forces, I believe now, and each task force, it varies. So some of our task forces, I know the carbon cashback, we have anywhere from 10 to 20 pretty active folks working on that. I know Green Fee is equally well staffed, if not more so. Some of the task forces, it's just a few people per person. And then there's probably a half dozen or so of us who kind of work on HECA as a whole to make sure that we're all the task forces are working together and trying to plan these various events that we have throughout the year and building up interest in trying to get these task forces to succeed in their effort to get their legislation passed.
So it sounds like they have like at least 50 or 60 people involved.
Yeah, I would think even more than that, but we don't keep that close a track of the task forces, like what their membership is or anything like that. It's a very loosely organized organization that allows a lot of freedom for the task forces to operate how they need to do to get their goals and priorities achieved.
So how are you funded? And what level of funding does it take to run an organization like this? And how can we help you?
So we haven't actually needed any funding so far. The only thing we've really spent money on is website design, and a few of us are able to do the design. So we just need the hosting, and we've just kind of passed the hat around to the people who work on this and those who are able to chip in 20 or so bucks, and that's been enough to get our website up and do a little bit of advertising. But yeah, we haven't really needed money. What we really need is committed individuals who can spend some time working and thinking about these issues and testifying at the state capitol, whether in person or via Zoom.
Okay, so let's throw another, so we have another slide on your mission. Maybe you want to go into this in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, so that's, why we do it is for the environment, and how we do it is building these coalitions, hosting these events we've had like Dr. Chip Fletcher, we've had legislators come and participate with these events and bring the public in to both share with them the importance of taking action, as well as giving folks a direction and a path. So we have these 10 different task forces, and they can then choose. You'll see in a later slide which area they're interested in, and they can focus their efforts on one of those task forces. And then we're starting to partner with different organizations like Hawaii Climate Action Coalition, the Climate Future Forum. And again, this is all about networking, building collaboration, and organizing the environmental community's actions at the legislature, so we can support one another. Different task forces can support other task forces. We're coordinating our actions, and we're stronger together. So that's the goal, and that's how we do it.
So these events, are these all online, like Zoom calls, or do you actually have face-to-face events? And if so, do y'all go to a restaurant, or how do you do that?
I would love to have face-to-face events. We started a couple years ago, so we've done everything on Zoom up till now. If we do eventually do a face-to-face event, we have partnered and done tabling in person, but as far as our big events that we have throughout the year, they've all been on Zoom so far. And we're a fast-growing organization. Eventually, maybe we will have a live event somewhere. So stay tuned.
Zoom is so great in that you can set up a meeting like that pretty quickly, and you don't have all the other costs associated with putting on a face-to-face event. But I read somewhere that a lot of communications is not like verbal or what you hear; it's just the vibes that people send out. So like 60% of your communication is just the fact that you're in the other person's force field. So, anyway, let's look a little bit at your values. What do you mean by values? What are your values for your organization?
The number one value is, our goal is to take action on these environmental issues, but our number one value is to do it equitably. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the main ones in my mind is the primary cause of a lot of our issues is the inequity. So the wealth distribution, the impacts, the colonialization issues that have happened. That's what's led us down to this place where we are, where we're facing these enormous environmental issues on a lot of different fronts, from climate change to our soils being depleted, to the plastic waste being dumped in poorer countries, and then that ends up in our oceans. There's so many inequity issues that are really at the heart of the problem, and then so we can't solve all these environmental issues without focusing on that inequity issue. So,
we have various economic levels here in Hawaii. So how do you dial into the lower, the people that, may be affected by inequities? I mean, a lot of people can't afford computers, or they don't go online. And how do you reach out to them? Or is it, the top level economic level talking about it, but what kind of input do you actually get from the people that are affected by this?
Well, that's a challenge, right? that's the challenge that all of our environmental organizations and task forces are dealing with, is that you're trying to reach out to folks that are working maybe even 2 jobs, and you're saying, hey, you should come to our Zoom meeting, and they're like, no, we work in 2 jobs, we're just barely making it by as is, and they don't have time to join us. But you do your best, you try to outreach, and number one is you got to think, when you're creating these policies, how can you help these folks out, because folks who are lower income can't afford an electric car, they can't afford solar panels on their house. So what can you do? We have legislation this year, for example, that's going through that will provide loans for people of low income in the ALICE low income quintile of incomes. And how can we give them a loan? How can we get them into an EV where they will be spending less money on gas, less money on maintaining their vehicle? How can we get solar panels on their homes, or so that they can be paying less for energy? And as you lift folks up out of a low income situation, then they have more opportunities to grow themselves and live a more sustainable life. But you can't ask folks who are barely making it day to day to make the changes or be able to participate meaningfully until you get them out of that situation.
Yeah, so one area I see that we could probably do a lot better, at least on some islands, is public transportation, because transportation is such a huge investment by families, especially the people who live out in the boonies, then they have to commute quite a long distance. Their cars aren't the most efficient. Gasoline is going up crazy. And, an electric vehicle isn't going to hack it if they have to, drive 50 to 60 miles one way, like some of the people on the Big Island do. So I see significant investment in public transportation, so that's your first choice. Like I lived in England for a number of years, and I didn't even own a car in England, but that's because public transportation was so great. I could just walk down the street, there was a subway or there was a bus or whatever. And I think, we really need to get after that. That's my thought. What do you think about that?
I think definitely public transportation is a big part of the solution. I always encourage folks not to get too into one specific solution and say, this is the one thing, because there's a variety of different solutions that can help us get to where we need to be. I just took my electric bike downtown to give testimony somewhere, and I ran into another fellow electric bike user who was biking all the way from Salt Lake into town every day to work, and wow. He said it was great. And that's not for everybody, though, obviously. So I would encourage folks, don't get too into one specific thing as this is the magic bullet that's going to save us. There's a variety of things, like designing our cities different, increasing bike paths, improving public transportation is definitely one of them, though. So yeah.
So let's spend a little bit more time now on your task forces, because I'm assuming you set up all these task forces to address specific areas. And so let's start off with the number one up at the top there, which is your decarbonization of transportation. How about that?
Yeah, so that's along the lines of what we were just talking about. And just as an overview of the task forces, our goal at HECA was not to say, we need all these different things. This is what needs to happen. As the HECA organizers, we said, what things are people interested in tackling out there? And really, to set up a task force, we just needed one person who is willing to say, I'm willing to put in the time and energy, and I'm committed to working on problem X. And And then we said, okay, we will help you set up a task force. We will help you get people. We will help you work together with the other task forces. And so each one of these task forces, there's at least one person that started it and said, you know what, I want to work on, or I'm already working on decarbonization of transportation. Let's create this task force and let's go. So decarbonization of transportation is primarily has been focused on electric vehicles, and but they've also supported public transportation, e-bikes, things like that. But so far, the bills going through the Senate through the legislature this year have been primarily EV bills, but there's been some really great ones, especially regarding low-income families, trying to help them be able to afford EV with different loan programs, things like that. So, yeah, that's decarb of transportation.
Okay, so do you want to go around the clock here and talk about climate and environmental game changers? Is that another task force?
That is. Dave and Sherry have run that one. They just recently changed the name. Dave and Sherry Molnick's from 350 Hawaii, and they recently changed the name from Green Amendment Task Force. And so hopefully having a green amendment is one of their top priorities still, which is the right, every person should have the right to a clean and healthy environment, which is one of those things like, we don't have that already. we have a right to free speech and a right to lots of other things, but we don't have a guaranteed right to a clean and healthy environment right now. So that's one of their top bills. They're also working on another bill related to solar permitting, which would drastically accelerate the solar permitting. Which, so if you don't know, sometimes getting solar panels on your house could take a year just for the permit, and this would be
it's nuts.
A day or two you'd have your permit, so it'd be drastically faster.
Yeah, right. So are there any other particular task forces you want to comment on, or do you want to do each one of them, or how do you want to do this?
You know what, I'll just highlight a couple really quick, but I know we have limited time. So I'll say the green fee has been really exciting this year. And we're really hopeful for that. Unfortunately, with carbon cashback, we don't have a bill anymore this year. So that one, we will try to put together a resolution and submit that. But unfortunately, that bill has died for the year. Yeah, and there's a lot of all these other ones, clean power, solid waste. They are all doing fantastic things. And we can skip ahead to the next slide if you want, and I can show you how folks can join, take action.
Sure, let's do that.
Yeah, so if you go to hawaiichangeagents.org, there is an Action Now page. And if you click on that, it'll show you bills that you can take actions on today. And by actions, we're talking about submitting testimony, which is super important. I can't stress that enough, that every individual going in and submitting testimony on a bill, that makes a difference. The legislators really do read testimony, and they really do take that into consideration when making decisions. So yeah, with this,
so I have a question. So just so everybody understands the process of, well, how do I do that? How do I get onto the legislation pages, and how do I actually submit a testimony? Tell us how easy it is.
Yeah, it is pretty easy. So if you were to click on one of those bills on that website, it would take you to the Capitol website. And if you haven't registered already, the registration is pretty simple. If you've registered for any other account online, it's at least as easy, if not easier than that. They don't ask a whole lot of questions. And yeah, you register, set up an account with them, and then afterwards you can log in and submit testimony on any bill that has a hearing or public decision making that's scheduled. unfortunately, you have a very limited time window in which to do so. So you frequently, we will get 48 hours notice of a hearing, and then for the testimony to be on time, you have to submit it 24 hours before the hearing. So you can go on the website, though, on the capital.hawaii.gov website, register to follow bills, basically. You can track measures on there, and it will send you an email when the bills you're tracking are ready to have a hearing scheduled. So that's about as good as it gets, unfortunately, as far as that. And you can also check the hawaiichangeagents.org website, as we try to update that several times a day to account for that. So
right. It's actually pretty easy once you get through the initial sign up phase, and anybody can submit testimony. And actually, I think legislators really appreciate testimony coming from just the general public, because, you know, as long as it's not canned, like you see 35 people with exactly the same testimony, that doesn't work. You have to put your own thoughts in there and share what you really believe, as opposed to just being, you know, rubber stamping somebody else's thoughts. So, and the legislators really pay attention to that, actually, that people, you know, anybody takes the time to get on there, the legislator knows that this guy's interested in this, or this person is. And so it does mean a lot. So let's walk through some of the bills that you're interested in from HECA.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. We can look at, there's a couple bills. There's the green fee bill. Hopefully we'll cross over, and that would provide, I think currently they're looking at $50 a year on visitors to Hawaii. And that bill would, or that money would then be used for maintaining our parks, trails, you know, the environmental impacts that visitors are having on Hawaii. We can ameliorate that, and that $50 times roughly 10 million tourists a year, that means we have, you know, 500 million, half a billion dollars every year that's staying in Hawaii to create, you know, good, stable, you know, quality jobs, and keeping that money here, keeping it in Hawaii rather than sending it off island is important. But as well, you know, trying to deal with a lot of the damages that visitors have on Hawaii is also super important. So
how do we keep the legislature from just putting it into the general fund and then just using it as a slush fund? Is that something that you guys can do to kind of be the police to make sure that it's being used for what it was intended?
Yeah, so there's never a way to fully prevent that, because the legislature always has the power to take, you know, any of the monies and do what they want with it. So the number one way to prevent that is eternal vigilance, right? You gotta keep an eye on what the legislature is doing. For too long, we've let the legislature just do what they want, and nobody's really paying attention to what they're doing, and that needs to stop. We need to keep an eye on them. We always need to keep an eye on them. We need to have organized groups like HECA, not just HECA. We need other groups out there for all the different issues that we face, to really keep on top of these guys, call them out when they're trying to pass something sketchy, and support them when they're passing great legislation. So.
All right. Okay, what other bills do you think you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, I would say just in general, if folks are interested in any of these overall task forces, if you're interested in EVs, you're interested in clean power, making sure that our electricity is generated with low carbon, If you're more concerned about the ocean, you're more concerned about overfishing, you're more concerned about plastic in our oceans, you would, if you're concerned about plastic, you'd go to the solid waste task force, you'd go to the oceans task force and see what they're doing. Each task force has 6, 7, 8 bills that they're tracking. And you can go via the HawaiiChangeAgents.org website. You can go on there and contact these task forces and ask them how they need help. What do they need help with? What bills do they need support on? Not always is the solution just go and testify on a bill, but that is typically what we're asking right now. Or you folks can join the task force and learn how to create bills next session and learn how to contact legislators and support them in their efforts. I'd say I don't want to go through like every last bill that we have because there's too many, but I don't want to play favorites in any. I probably shouldn't have played favorites with the green fee, but that is a big one that is out there, along with a whole bunch of other big ones that are out there. So
the green fee, I think there's a significant opposition to it, though, and people aren't even sure that it's legal that you can do that. What's your comment on that? Is that just me smoking something or what?
There's always going to be pushback on any change you try to make, right? It's very rare to get a piece of legislation up there that some organization thinks it might impact their bottom line, so it tries to push back against it. There's some concerns there with whether it's running afoul of the constitutional trade provisions that say you can't impact the trade between states. But that really is just certain organizations trying to find a way to discourage this bill from passing, unfortunately.
So I have a question about this bill. So if I'm coming with a family to Hawaii and there's mom and dad and 2 kids, that's like $200. Is that the way it works?
I'm not sure exactly, but I think it would be, I think it would be per person. So it could be significant impact. But what studies have shown is that when people realize this is a fee to address the environmental impact of their visit, then they're happy to support it. They're happy to. And if a family is coming and they're a family of 4, likely they're spending $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and we're just saying, a couple $100 to help out the environment. Whereas if we don't have this fee, that means currently any impacts are being, if our parks are being fixed up by funds that come from the state general fund, that means that Hawaii residents are currently paying for the damage caused by tourism. So that's definitely not right. And I think tourists will understand and will be willing to support this measure.
Yeah, I was reading an article a while ago, actually several years ago, that in Greece, I think it was in the Greek islands, they started imposing this kind of a fee. And what they found is because the political establishment actually invested the money where it was supposed to be, they totally upgraded all their facilities and made it a much better experience for the local people as well as the tourists coming in. And they were able to attract higher end tourists, people who actually spend money. And everybody was pretty happy with it, but that's because it was managed properly. The money was spent for the intended purpose. So like your parks aren't all run down, like you say, the local population is supporting this. And that's just not right. So I'm a fan.
Yeah, it really is like an investment in Hawaii, especially for the visitor industry. because people come here primarily, a lot of the reason is to see our beautiful natural environment. And so maintaining that environment is really an investment in the visitor industry. So we hope that they will support this as well.
Okay, well, we've come to the end of our time, believe it or not. We've blown through 30 minutes really fast. It always seems to go fast. I just like to tell you, Matthew, that I really admire what you've done, because you set this up in your initiative with some of your friends. I don't want to cut them out of it, but your spare time, your spare cash, putting all this together to do good things for Hawaii. So congratulations, and good for you for doing that, and for your team and all your people that are helping out on this as well, your task force guys. I mean, this is a really great program, and I'm really happy to be able to highlight it for everybody who doesn't know about it. And so well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, okay, so we're going to leave it there. You've been watching Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy on ThinkTech Hawaii. And we've been talking story with Matthew Geyer, and he's one of the founders of the Hawaii Environmental Change Agents organization. So we've been talking today about legislation and how you can make Hawaii a better place and all the things that they're doing. So thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
And thanks to our viewers for tuning in. And I'm Mitch Ewan. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another edition of Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. Aloha.
Thank you so much for watching ThinkTech Hawaii. If you like what we do, please like us and click the subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button on Vimeo. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and donate to us at thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.